The new theater of the mind. The Bruce Collins Show.
Welcome back to the Bruce Collins Show. We're very glad to have you join us. The Bruce Collins Show airs every Friday night at midnight right here at WWPR 1490 AM. You can listen to past archives of the Bruce Collins Show at fringeradionetwork.com. That's fringeradionetwork.com. There's a tab just for the Bruce Collins Show on the Fringe Radio Network website. We would appreciate it if you're able to spread the word for our show by word of mouth, social media, or in whatever creative way you can. Also, we have a Facebook page for the Bruce Collins Show. Please like us there. And you can email the show at bruce_collins_show@AOL.com. Let us know how we're doing. Our guests tonight are Patrick Wood. This is part 2 of an eye-opening 2-part interview. If you missed it, you can listen to part 1 at fringeradionetwork.com from last week. Patrick is the author of Technocracy Rising. The dark horse of the New World Order is not communism, socialism, or fascism. It is technocracy. With meticulous detail and abundance of original research, Patrick Wood uses Technocracy Rising to connect the dots of modern globalization in a way that has never been seen before so that the reader can clearly understand the globalization plan, its perpetrators, and its intended endgame. And we're going to reveal the agenda tonight. Also joining us are actors Brett Wagner and DeeDee Bigelow. Brett Wagner was the host of the Speed Channel's show Pastime, as well as the voice of Discovery Channel's Monster Garage, and he's been in a lot of television and films, including The Crazies. And they, Brett Wagner and DeeDee Bigelow, will have a special announcement about their role in the Bruce Collins Show in the coming months. And joining us this week, once again, is my friend Patrick Wood. Patrick Wood is an author and lecturer who has studied elite globalization policies since the late 1970s, when he partnered with the late Anthony C. Sutton to co-author Trilaterals over Washington, Volumes 1 and 2. He remains a leading expert on the elitist Trilateral Commission, their policies and achievements in creating their self-proclaimed new international economic order. An economist by education, a financial analyst and writer by profession, and an American constitutionalist by choice, Patrick has deep historical insights into the modern attacks on sovereignty, property rights, and personal freedom. Such attacks are epitomized by the implementation of UN policies such as Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, Smart Growth, and in education, the widespread adoption of Common Core. Wood is a frequent speaker and guest on radio shows around the nation. His current research builds on Trilateral Commission hegemony, focusing on technocracy, transhumanism, technocracy and scientism, and how these are transforming economics, politics, and religion. The endgame, if ignored, will result in scientific dictatorship. Again, it's Patrick Wood. His latest book is Technocracy Rising, the Trojan Horse of Global Transformation. And if you've got a pen handy, I've got a couple of websites to give you. Patrick Wood can be found at technocracyrising.com and augustforecast.com. Patrick, welcome back to the Bruce Collins Show.
Thanks, Bruce. Glad to be back again.
Listeners tonight who have kids in school, talk about Common Core. Is that part of technocracy?
Oh, absolutely. The early technocrats recognized that the education needed to be very carefully controlled to brainwash the students. They not only need to be prepared for the workforce in very specific ways, but they needed to brainwash the students to be copacetic for the, with the common good issue. Like you need to operate according to the team here, not as individuals. And in that sense, the technocrats didn't place any value on individuals. They placed, in other words, individuals received value based on their position in the community, not because of their own intrinsic selves.
Yeah.
That's completely antithetic to the way you and I think. People have value and worth just because they are who they are,
right,
not because of what they do in the community. So in their eyes, in any case, whether you're a mayor or, just a grunt at a factory or whatever, well, whoever is perceived as doing more for the community is going to have more higher value.
Mm-hmm.
That's not very good thinking, actually, in my book.
Right. Let me ask you about elections. In 2016, we're going to have an election, and it looks like pretty much all the candidates will be working for the elites. But there are conservatives within the Republican Party that'll point to a Ted Cruz and say, well, look, this person may give us a chance. But yet I also hear his wife used to be a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. So do you think there will be any alternative, say, in the general election in 2016?
Personally, I do not.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had a choice since Jimmy Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Every presidency has been surrounded. If the vice president or president were not members of the Trilateral Commission, they were surrounded by people who were.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to get any chance whatsoever, whether it's a Jeb Bush or a Romney, whatever. I don't think we're going to have any new choice. And I don't think the Tea Party is going to come riding to the rescue here. And I'll tell you honestly, the problem in America is not the politicians. The technocrats hate politicians.
Mm-hmm.
They only use them for their own advancement, but they don't really have any use for them otherwise. They feel that they're incompetent, that they have no technological training or background, and that they're incapable of managing a technological society. They have no respect for the Congress whatsoever. So when you look at Congress, when you look at the executive branch, well, look at Congress first. Congress has been completely neutered.
Yeah.
By these people. They have no regard for Congress whatsoever. Congress passes laws, say you got to do this, this, and this. They just ignore them. The executive branch just looks at it, goes, we'll do what we want. So make us, come force us to do it or something. Well, they can't, and they won't, and they haven't. So Congress is out of it. Forget, the people that work on getting, Tea Party people elected. It just hasn't done anything. Hasn't done any good at all.
Right.
You talk about the presidential election. Whoever gets elected president will be under the thumb of these technocrats. You can bet your bottom dollar that that person will be under their thumb. I will give you a case in point with Mr. John Podesta, who is the senior policy advisor for climate change to Obama. Podesta is a member of the Trilateral Commission, by the way. He's a poster child for technocracy. He was involved with the United Nations up until early last year in a high-level panel on climate change for global action, action plan for the global climate change initiative. He came away from that committee, went straight to work for Obama to craft climate change policy for Obama to use with executive orders and with regulational stuff coming out of different agencies. So John Podesta has been accredited single-handedly for creating the climate change policy in America and basically shoved it down our throat via a president who is basically a puppet on a string as far as that stuff's concerned.
Mm-hmm.
This is how they've done it. So even though somebody said, well, Obama's not a member of the Trilateral Commission, I say no, but here's a major chunk of his policy coming straight out of the mouth and hand of John Podesta, who is a member of the Trilateral Commission. And by the way, even New York Times wrote a feature article on John Podesta stating exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
That he was the guy that did it. So are we going to get any relief from this because of any president that we put in? The answer is absolutely not. The technocrats, like the John Podestas of the world, they are hardcore people intent on transforming our society into technocracy and will stop at nothing. The only way that we can rout them out of our government is to individually go after them and get them forced out of government. If there's any hope whatsoever, that's it.
Yeah.
These technocrats will simply change color like a chameleon, no matter whether it's a Democrat or Republican or Tea Party member in the presidency. they will simply change their color and just go on about their business as if nothing had ever happened.
Right.
This is what we've seen for 45 years now.
Right. Case in point, Ronald Reagan, as I understand it, when he was running for president, promised that he would not have anyone from these groups in his cabinet, and then he changed, didn't he?
He did. And, well, not only that, but George H.W. Bush was a member of the Trilateral Commission.
Right.
And, that was a last-minute deal brokered at the GOP convention. Bush had been tossed out of the primary with gusto, oddly enough, by people in Florida. That's what cost him the whole shoot match. Florida tossed him out and forced him out of the primary. But he came in as the vice presidential candidate, and then later Bush apparently persuaded Reagan to bring the entire membership, North American membership of the commission, to the White House. They had a big giant meeting, and Reagan observed after that how important they were to, for all the contributions and stuff they were making. So it's like, yeah, okay, well, he didn't repudiate him, that's for sure.
Was there any truth to the rumor that it was Kissinger that was influential in causing Reagan to do that? It
exactly was Henry Kissinger. And Henry Kissinger was also the guy that wanted to have a co-presidency at one point. This guy's a maniac. He's always been a maniac, but he really was then. And basically, he came in, whatever he said to Reagan to get Bush on the ticket, and I don't know what that was, by the way, but whatever he said to him, it got Reagan's attention.
Yeah. And
he succumbed. He knuckled under to him and said, okay, I'll do that. And, well, I don't know if that ever had anything to do with the attempt on his life later on, but,
yeah.
If he had second thoughts. But Reagan really knuckled under to these people, and they taught him how the crow flies.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Kissinger has been well known on networks like CNBC and also on Charlie Rose's program talking about a new world order. Now, one would have to ponder at this point that a Judeo-Christian based constitution would not be desired by the technocrats. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely safe to say. They don't want anything to do with our Constitution at all, and that's why they have total disdain for it. They would like to destroy our Constitution as soon as possible, and they've been doing a pretty darn good job.
Yeah. Can you tell us about reflexive law and give us an example of how President Obama has used this?
Boy, this is tough. I'm going to have to turn to my section in my book here and look and refresh my mind on this again. Reflexive law is the most difficult concept to get your head around, but I can start out by saying this: the traditional concept of rule of law that we have built America on, where the legislature passes laws, the executive administers those laws, the judiciary, adjudicates those laws. The concept, if anybody gets a foul of the law, that they have the right to a jury by their peers, etc. The rule of law is for all to practice, and equally so, that the law should apply to everybody, and not just a select few people. This is what Western civilization has been built upon, especially in America. Reflexive law is an alternative legal system that is antithetical to our concept of the rule of law. Mm-hmm. And reflexive law basically is a recursive type of thinking where you first decide what you want to do, then you measure what the societal norm is, according to your view at least, and then you turn around and use the law to enforce that societal norm on the people standing before the court. This sounds crazy, and it is. It dates back a little bit to the mercantile law legal system that existed back when Great Britain was, king of the seas, or ruled the seas. Mm-hmm. There were courts that were set up along the trade routes to adjudicate disputes amongst trading companies. That kind of makes sense on the surface, really, because you're not subject to national law, so they set up their own kangaroo courts to determine what best practices and policy should be, and then somebody that violated those got whacked or fined or whatever. And that worked for a time on the international seas, but when you take that concept and you apply it to legal stuff everywhere, all of a sudden you realize that you're basically at the whim of the judge and the prosecutors that are trying to nail you for something. Mm-hmm. So if you had a farm and you had a three-toed snail darter out there somewhere in a mud flat, and environmentalists found out about it, and they came in and said, well, you can't put a plow on that mud flat over there anymore because you have a three-toed snail darter, and it's on endangered species list. And you say to them, well, I farmed this land for 100 years, and I always plow that over there, and if it hasn't hurt them for 100 years, it wouldn't hurt them now. But the environmentalist is going to say, we're taking you to court.
Yeah.
And they will use all kinds of studies that are brought in from maybe from the EPA, maybe from the Agriculture Department, maybe from radical environmental groups that study endangered species, and they'll bring all this boatload of stuff into court to hammer you down on why you're out of the social norm. Why, how dare you not be concerned about the three-toed snail darter? Everybody else is, and you're not, and you will succumb to our dictates here. You can't put a plow to that mud flat, period, in the subject. And then they're given the opportunity to comply, and basically reflexive law says if you don't comply, because there's really no legal teeth to this stuff, if you don't comply, we will bury you with additional regulations in the future. It's a threat. It's extortion. It's what it is. Yeah. Legal extortion. And so you can sign our papers now, voluntarily agreeing that you won't plow up that mud flat, or we can't guarantee to you that, all the future regulations are going to be even worse to you than what we're doing to you now. And people knuckle under. You know what? It's like the schoolyard bully that says, give me your lunch money.
Yeah.
Or I'll punch your face at.
Exactly.
It's the same concept, and it's absolutely antithetical to the American way and to the American legal system.
Mm-hmm. And the book is Technocracy Rising, the Trojan Horse of Global Transformation by Patrick Wood. And you can go to his website, technocracyrising.com, for more information. Now, you and I did a whole hour on the global smart grid, and it's on YouTube. Someone put it up there. So I don't want to talk about that tonight, but if people go to YouTube and put in Patrick Wood and Bruce Collins, that video will appear. It goes for a whole hour explaining the whole global smart grid. It is important that people know what that is. But tell us about the surveillance society, and I tend to think the smart grid could tap into that, of course. We see this happening now, the surveillance society. Is this part of the plan of these technocrats?
Well, it is, Bruce. But let me rewind a bit to smart grid.
Okay.
This is a good time to read the first 5 requirements that were written down by M. King Hubbard on technocracy in the book called Technocracy Study Course that was produced in 1934. And I'll remind you that the technology was not really there when he wrote this to do what he said, what he thought. Mm-hmm. But I want to read you verbatim, word for word, quote, and all that stuff, the first 5 requirements that were written in the Technocracy Study Course. There were 7 they actually gave, but I'm going to read the first 5 only. And you listen carefully and see how this fits into smart grid, which is a control of energy, smart meters on your house, controlling the appliances in your house, and so on, and the total surveillance society, because you'll see they go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Point number 1, requirement number 1, quote, register on a continuous 24-hour per day basis the total net conversion of energy. Number 2, by means of the registration of energy converted and consumed, make possible a balanced load. Point 3, provide a continuous inventory of all production and consumption. Number 4, provide a specific registration of the type, kind, etc. of all goods and services where produced and where used.
Wow.
And number 5, provide specific registration of the consumption of each individual, plus a record and description of the individual. Close quote.
And that's from the 1930s.
That's right. Could have been written yesterday, couldn't it?
Yes.
But here's the point. Control and data go together. Picture yourself managing a factory floor. You're making something. You got, people running around carrying parts to assemble, and you've got maybe some welding robots doing some things, and you've got trucks backing up to the dock and bringing stuff in and taking away finished product. And you're the manager over this whole big, say, a 40,000 square foot factory. You have to make it work efficiently. If you're going to make a profit, you have to make it work like a Swiss watch, like the BMW motor in your car. Just click, 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 click. It's got to work. So you set yourself out to make a plan for your floor, and you get everything lined up, whatever. As a shop manager, as a floor manager, you have to monitor every stage of the production process if you're going to control the output, input, and everything in between. You have to monitor, or you cannot control. And you can only control to the extent that you monitor the shop floor, right? So the more you know, the better you are able to manage your whole operation. And this is exactly the way the technocrats look at society. They look at society as a shop floor where they want to control everything. Remember the scientific dictatorship concept. They want to control everything, and they're going to use energy to do it, or that is, they're going to control energy to control everything else, but the data allows them, it gives them the constant state of affairs where they can use they need the data in order to make adjustments on the shop floor to run it more efficiently and smoothly. That's what the Total Awareness Society is all about. The data. It's not a political coup. It's not just to break down your privacy. It's not just, it's about the collecting of monitoring data to allow the technocrats to better engineer society according to their scientific method. So everywhere you see data being collected, if you think about it this way, you'll never look at it the same. Whether it's the NSA collecting emails, phone calls, financial records, or whatever, whether it's Obamacare collecting all of your healthcare data, whether it's Common Core collecting 400 points of data on students at schools, it's all about your data. Smart grid is included right along with it. It's about the data. They need the data to control the shop floor.
Wow.
By the way, there is a provision in the Affordable Health Care Act. It's in my book. I don't have the reference right now, but there is a provision that specifies health clinics on behalf of Obamacare to be placed into schools to run health clinics within the schools to be little points of data collection for Obamacare. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Hasn't been done yet, to my knowledge, but the clause is in there and it's just as clear as crystal.
It's
what they're trying to do.
It's under Subtitle B, Section 4101 of the Affordable Care Act.
Thank you, Professor.
Yes.
That's it.
I had a good book in front of me. Now, in your book, you write, society rests on three identical pillars: economics, politics, and religion. We've talked about economics and politics. Religion, I've noticed there's some churches that I would, in the old days, we'd say they were backslidden. They talk about green and they're really, more, I guess you could say a lot more secular than what you would want from a Christian church. Have they been directly infiltrated, or are they just a bunch of backslidden Christians?
Well, the ecumenical movement has been really infiltrated with global warming / CO2 containment / sustainable development, and so on. They've been really influenced to a large degree. The National Council of Churches, the World Council of Churches are totally steeped in it. The Episcopalian Church, the Presbyterian Church, some of the other smaller churches. Even the Catholic Church has weighed in on us now. The Pope just recently issued a big statement about global warming, so he's in on it too. There's the organized religion in that sense are just absolutely steeped in sustainable development right now. As far as the evangelical church is concerned, they've had another, probably a slightly different attack to neutralize them, but that's, the evangelical members they're in a small minority, if you will. It's not, compared to the whole body of religion globally, the evangelical church is relatively minuscule.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
But they have their own problems, right?
Yeah, and you don't have to expand on this, but is there a connection to, say, like the Rockefellers and others? Have they somehow brought these churches in line with this philosophy, or did it just so happen that happened while technocrats were promoting this?
No, they did it on purpose. And the ecumenical leader of the interfaith movement, or one of the big leaders of the interfaith movement, is a man by the name of Stephen Rockefeller.
Interesting.
Here we go, right? He's not a politician. He's not a banker. He's a theologian. And he also is the nephew of Nelson Rockefeller. Excuse me, not the nephew. Take it back. He's the son of Nelson Rockefeller, the nephew of David Rockefeller. And he has been instrumental in the ecumenical movement, reforming it into this whole mindset. And he also was the guy, by the way, that was instrumental in creating the so-called Earth Charter, which is just, I don't know if we want to even get into that, but people should read the Earth. I put it in the appendix of my book because I felt it was so important. The Earth Charter is just blatant about globalization. It's just incredible. And being good little citizens of the world and,
amazing.
Oh, it makes me want to vomit.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
No, I agree. And now, Julian Huxley's dream of transhumanism, which was a humanist dream, is that part of the dream of the technocrats?
It was not at the time. But scientism is at the root of both.
Yeah.
So I look at it this way at this point. They're like Siamese twins joined at the hip. They're inseparable. And they're both based on the same principle of scientism, just totally steeped in scientism.
Okay, so most of our listeners probably have no idea what transhumanism is. Can you give us sort of a helicopter view?
Well, transhumanism is the transformation of the human being himself. We talked about transforming government. We talked about transforming society and social institutions and so on. Scientism would propose to transform human beings themselves. And so transhumanism is kind of a philosophical / scientism movement that calls for the application of science to improve the condition of man. In particular, transhumans would seek to achieve immortality by downloading their brains into computers. A science fiction thought, isn't it? Yeah. They would seek to become omniscient by providing brain-computer interfaces to tie into things like Google. They would hope to be able to download their brains into computers so that they could travel to far-off places, even to far-off planets, or be put into, re-uploaded into things like, humanoid robots.
Wow.
Transhumanism is growing like leaps and bounds all over the world today in the scientific community. I can't say this trickled down to the street yet, but it's coming. It's in all of the educational institutions around the world. They're studying these things under the auspices of a new scientific endeavor called convergent technologies, which includes four primary departments already in most universities. That would include information science, mind sciences, nanotechnology, and bioscience. That would be the study of genetics. So genetics, the control of genetics, the control over nanotechnology, Computer technology, of course, is, ones and zeros and all that kind of stuff that provides control. And mind sciences, and that's the study of the mind. And by the way, at the State of the Union address, Obama's last State of the Union address, after he got elected, you don't call that State of the Union, but the speech he gave after he got elected this last time, he pledged a huge sum of money to kickstart a program to map the human brain. Now, I guarantee you that Obama didn't think about that the night before. He didn't come up with that by itself. But he said that it's as important to map the human brain as it was to map the human genome. And that's biological sciences. And, of course, mapping the human brain now is just, that's a national A1 priority here as well as many other countries around the world. Scientists are now studying what makes the actual human brain tick. This is all scientism disguised as transhumanism, using taxpayer money to come up with all these cockeyed ideas about transhumanism. How are we going to do this, guys? How are we going to use all this stuff to take control of evolution and create humans 2.0?
Right.
That's exactly what they're trying to do.
And if anyone scoffs at that tonight, listening to this in Tampa, just ask yourself, why is there so much propaganda in the movies right now selling us on transhumanism? But it's right there. And it stands to reason that if we replace God, we try to become gods ourselves, or, with a small g. Now, you also write about in your book, Technocracy Rising, how the Christian church needs to understand Bible prophecy. And I would have to emphasize the Bible and Bible prophecy, because given that, how does someone avoid the rampant speculation in Bible prophecy and the conspiracy camps right now? Because most of the time, if I follow conspiracy theory, there's a lot of speculation. I've invited you on and the Collins brothers because I have a lot of respect for you. You guys are genuine researchers. I know that everything you say has been researched and it's well documented. But as you know, a lot of Bible prophecy and conspiracy theory today is quite speculative. So how do we avoid all of that?
Well, I'd have to say, do your research, of course. Mm-hmm. I always say, show me the beef, show me the proof. Yeah. If you got proof, I want to see it. If you don't have proof, I think I'll just pass. I don't want to hear any more.
Right.
Now I can speculate as good as the next guy. Let me back up just a little bit. I've done plenty of it in my life, I'm sure, and I won't say that I'm proud of all the speculation I've ever done. But the fact remains, Bruce, and I used to tell my kids this, it used to drive them nuts when I would pull this on them, but kids are prone to say stuff sometimes. It's just off the wall, and, they try and get you to do something, and they fabricate something, and I would tell them routinely that you cannot know what you do not know. Right. And they hated that. They just hate, after a while, oh, Dad, come on. And then they say, I know what you're going to say now. And they would anticipate me saying it. And now that they're older, they laugh. And they're probably going to say the same thing to their kids when they get a little bit older. But you know what? You cannot know what you do not know. And people say they know a lot of things, but they're only speculating. They don't know. Mm-hmm. And we need to be very careful when we analyze somebody's proposition to say, do they really know what they're talking about? Has there been eyewitness accounts? Has there been, verified documentation somewhere along the way that something is true? You need to drill down into it and see if there's any, really any proof there. Or is it just, smoke and mirrors that it sounds like a good theory and it sounds like a good story, but there's just no beef to it. That's about all I can say. I wrote an article, by the way, is published on one of my on my ministry website, RevelationGate.com. It's also got published on Horoscope.com, which is a discernment website that looks into stuff like this. And I wrote a simple article called "How to Keep Yourself from Being Deceived," and especially about end time events. And I did this not to debunk anything, but just to say, here's some positive steps you can take to keep yourself from being deceived. And I gave just a few points, I think 7 points in total. Very simple, commonsensical type things, and you read the list as a whole and say, gee, that's all there is to it? But simple stuff, like the Bible is simple to understand. Just wait for it and don't try and, don't get impatient and impose stuff on it that's not there. Mm-hmm. I say context is everything. Never study without it. Expect to be blessed, not confused or scared. It's all biblical stuff. The Bible is the only book you need, not, bringing in all kinds of other extra biblical books to build doctrine on.
Right.
Simple, mostly commonsensical stuff drawn straight out of Scripture. And if people do those things routinely, if they're Christians, if they care about the Bible at all, if they do those kinds of things consistently, they're not going to be sucked in to speculation nearly as much. So that's about all I can say about it, I guess. You've got to verify the facts and what people are talking about. And even when you're talking about something as speculation, just say a speculation. You can do that. I used to have a pastor. I remember years ago I went to a church and he would stand behind his pulpit, and every once in a while he would sidestep the pulpit and say, okay, I'm stepping away from the pulpit here now. I'm just going to say something that has nothing, it's not Bible doctrine, nothing. And he would step away from it, and he'd make a statement, then he'd go back on and go on with what he's doing. I always appreciated that because you knew he was about to give you something that was speculative.
Yeah.
He didn't pin it. He didn't blame it on the Bible. Oh, this is what the Bible says. This is certainly the way it's going to happen. Oh, my. He didn't get people all worked up in a lather, twisting Scripture somehow. He'd always step aside and say, I just want to, I have an opinion on this, and I'll share my opinion, but it's just my opinion, understand. I don't have any other reason for it. It's just my opinion.
Right.
Okay. I can appreciate, I can honor that. I say, okay, fine. I'd like to be that way too when I teach, at least, if I have an opinion on something, I say, well, the facts aren't really there, but this is what I think anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you one more question, and it would be, how do our listeners take action? But before I do that, I consider this information so valuable and so important that I want to ask you, is there anything we did not cover that you think is as important or more important than the topics we've listed tonight?
I don't think so. We've only scratched the surface, of course, and I would encourage people to get the book and read it, and I would just challenge them, find out for yourself if it's true or not. You don't have to believe what I say on the air, but you certainly can believe the 250 plus footnotes and the bibliography that I give with it. If you don't agree with my conclusions, at least you can go back to the source of my information and you can come to your own conclusion.
Right. So we've covered quite a bit of ground, and I know to many of our listeners this can seem very overwhelming. In other words, what can I do about all this? And I've noticed a lot of Christians in particular, there is an attitude of, well, this just means it's the end times. I'll just wait until Jesus returns. But we don't want to do that, right? So how can our listeners take action?
Well, we are going to wait. As Christians, a Christian, a biblically oriented Christian, will certainly wait for the Lord's return.
Right.
But in the meantime, there's no mandate that we should just sit back on our couch and punch the TV clicker. That's not what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
If a Christian wants to give lip service to the concept of biblical worldview, and I hear this all the time. There's people actually teaching this, biblical. You should have a biblical worldview, Mr. Christian. Then shouldn't that biblical worldview be based on reality rather than speculation or ignorance?
Amen.
I say amen to it. I say, well, if you're going to have an accurate worldview, then you need to face reality as it really is.
Yeah.
And whatever that is, you may not like it, but whatever that reality is, especially as a Christian, you better face it straight on. Because if you don't, you're basically, you may say you have a worldview, but it's based on ignorance and misunderstanding, maybe even bad doctrine. What good's that going to do you? All that's going to do is produce fear and confusion in your outlook on life, and uncertainty. And all those things are antithetical to what the Bible wants for us. Mm-hmm. And so I just say, look, as a Christian, if you want to have a straight up biblical worldview, then how about get in touch with reality? That's a good place to start.
Absolutely. And again, the book is Technocracy Rising, the Trojan Horse of Global Transformation by Patrick Wood. And you can visit him at technocracyrising.com. Let me spell that. TECHNOCRACY, technocracyrising.com, augustforecast.com, and revelationgate.com. Patrick Wood. Patrick, thank you once again for coming back, and I would love to have you back again sometime.
Anytime. It's a great interview. We've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time, and that's a challenge. Yeah. You've done a good job of it today.
Thank you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bruce Collins at The Bruce Collins Show. Thank you so much for joining us each and every week, Fridays at midnight on WWPR 1490 AM. We would ask that you would support all of your favorite charities that help to spread the gospel, clothe the needy, and feed the hungry. You can do that as thanks for listening to our program. We ask of no monetary payback from you, only your listenership and your dedication to making the world a better place. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoy the show. Joining me this week is Brett Big Schwag Wagner and DeeDee Bigelow. They're both actors in Hollywood. Brett Wagner has also been a reality TV star, a TV host, a nationally syndicated radio host, a former pro wrestler, and an author. And DeeDee Bigelow, of course, several years ago now, she left Olympia, Washington, and ended up in Las Vegas, where she auditioned for a show called Surreal Life Fame Games, and she got in. And they filmed the show with Tracy Bingham, Vanilla Ice, and Vern Troyer, and she was right there with them. And then she went off to Hollywood, and since living in Hollywood, she's enjoyed fame on TV shows like CSI New York, Shark, and My Name is Earl. She was also in the movie Alien Armageddon, which in that movie there was the voice of George Norrie, the host of Coast to Coast AM. And she and Brett also created a short film called Miss Poppins. And I bet that has nothing to do with Disney. Brett and DeeDee, welcome to the Bruce Collins Show, or I should say welcome back.
Thank you, buddy. And most importantly, DeeDee Bigelow is my fiancée.
Excellent, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's not leave that part out.
Yeah, that's right. You know, this morning I went into a donut shop, and there was a lady behind the counter. I couldn't understand a word she was saying, and finally she said, "I have 2 bear claws." You know what I did? I offered her my cosmetic surgeon. But, all right, I won't try.
I thought you were going to say you shot her.
You know, that brings up an embarrassing point. You had a nationally syndicated radio show, and you invited me on. And do you remember what I said that was kind of awkward?
You were doing book reviews for us.
Right.
For quite a while. And you did a review on a flatulence, but it was a great review, so if it's not that embarrassing thing, no, I don't remember. What'd you say?
Well, the first time you had me on, it was to talk about my wrestling book. This was before I was actually doing book reviews. So I was listening to your show, and you guys were joking, and I remember there was a joke about Taco Bell being the fake Mexican restaurant, and you were making fun of your co-host's chest hairs and things like that. So I got on there, And I thought, I'm going to try to think of something funny, which I don't think you guys were expecting me to say anything like this. And I said, I think you said, welcome to the program. And I said, thank you. And I said, I haven't been this excited since I had a bowel movement last night. And there was kind of silence after that.
There was, you know what? I seem to remember that, and I think there was a little silence. We were just taken back by your witty humor and did not realize that night and that interview was going to be the start of a wonderful radio relationship.
Well, we can only hope. Now, speaking of acting in general, how did you both why did you both want to get into acting?
I'll let DeeDee start there. Go ahead, sweetie.
You know, I never dreamed of being an actress. I was always into watching movies and, you know, if I liked a movie, I would watch it 100 times. I have Star Wars memorized. And so later in life, when I just decided to move away from Washington and I was in Vegas and saw that casting call, I thought, well, how fun. I have a Baywatch, swimsuit. I could be Tracy Bingham's biggest fan. And I went to that audition in the Baywatch swimsuit, and boy, I don't think I had to say anything. They went, hired. Great, can you shoot next week? And I was like, okay. And, you know, it was different. I was introduced on the show by Robin Leach, and I spent 6 hours, you know, filming on the reality show, and it was during that 6-hour bit that I went, yeah, this is for me. I have finally found my passion in life, and it's acting, and this is what I want to do.
How did I start? You know what? My parents used to plot me in front of a TV set when I was young, and we used to watch, Twilight Zones, The Outer Limits, and everything that was on TV. And I just knew from a young age that I wanted to be an actor, and didn't kind of quite know what to do till I got into my 20s, and then I went to my first acting class. And actually, it's very funny because I went to this kind of a scam thing, the John Robert Powers Acting and Modeling Agency.
Oh, yeah.
Where they take your money, and here's a 21-year-old kid and a big kid in a class with a bunch of kids trying to be models, you know, like we're talking kids.
Wait. Did you say modeling agency?
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember John Robert Powers.
So, you know, and I went from there, and then I got thank goodness, the acting teacher was actually really an acting teacher, and she got me a commercial agent, and it took, it's a long haul. I've been doing it for 18 years, and
didn't one of your first
long road, brother.
Didn't one of your first acting jobs, your mother thought you were a murderer?
Yeah, you know, it's very funny. I did a reality, one of those recreation shows, and it was I played a killer who killed a psychic. I mean, he should have saw it coming, Bruce.
Yeah, exactly.
And, he did not, and instead of using his picture when they did the recreation part on TV, they just cropped one of my headshots really close. And my mom saw it, or some lady down the street saw it and called my mom and said, "Your son's a killer." And you can't tell them differently once they see something on TV. So
yeah, and once that happened, you were on the run for how many years?
Yeah, I couldn't. I was stuck in different parts of the world I can't talk about right now.
That's right. You know, one thing I've never talked to you about, Brett, is when you were in the movie The Crazies, I talked to Chris Carnell, who was the stunt coordinator for that movie, and he was talking about how when your character was on fire, that was actually you, right? At least at the beginning parts of that was actually you set on fire, right?
Yeah, I do a 3/4 burn, you know. I'd only done a little bit of a burn before on my arm, and I was doing, Chris Carnell is, first of all, very good actor and a great, top-notch, one of the best stunt coordinators in the business today. Mm-hmm. And, he was my right-hand guy there, and he kept walking me through everything, and they did not like my stunt guy too much, my stunt double, so they said, "Hey, can you do a burn?" And I said, "Sure." You know, little did I know I was doing a 3/4 burn, which goes down up to your mid chest and all the way up the back of your head.
Wow.
But they walked me through it. Did it once, and now I feel comfortable with it. I didn't do the full burn, which is because they wanted me to, but that would have taken probably $3,500 out of my stunt double's pocket, so I didn't want to do that. So when holding your breath, Bruce.
So when
you think that holding your breath for 14, 15 seconds is not a big deal until you're on fire.
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden that 15 seconds, it seems like it's 5 minutes.
Yeah, then you want to hyperventilate. So when you auditioned, they didn't say, well, this character, is going to be Kentucky Fried during the movie.
You know what, Bruce, the funny thing is when I didn't realize, and it's so stupid because I am the science fiction horror scary movie guru. I've been since I was a kid. I came in and I didn't even realize it was a remake of The Crazies by George Romero. So my little role, I'm sitting here and I'm pretending I'm like this truck driver that's a zombie. And then when I get out of the audition, I'm like, wait a minute, what did I just do? There's no zombies in The Crazies, the original. But they somehow liked me. It brought me back, and I read for a different part, which I got, Jesse, one of the crazy hunters, and no, they don't tell you that you're going to be lit on fire. When I got the script and about a couple weeks out before I flew out, they called and said, hey, you don't mind, actually, they didn't even call. If I stand corrected, they were going to have the stunt guy do it. They just didn't, as I said, they didn't like how he was doing it or was going to do it or didn't have extensive knowledge in burns, so they just said, let's stick with the real guy. So they do what? They put a bunch of gel on you, and then when they set you on fire, do you feel heat, or what do you feel? Oh, yeah. Well, just imagine if it's like you're cold, it's the winter. You throw on thermals underneath. You turn on thermal pants, thermal top. So what they do is they take this thermal top, they dip it in this goop, this slimy stuff, and then you put that on. And then you put your clothes over that you're wearing in the scenes, and they goop those up. And they put some stuff in your hair, on the back wherever your skin is exposed. Then they put the accelerant on you. And then they say, don't breathe until the stunt coordinator tells you to breathe. I had about probably like 11 seconds. I'm running around from start to finish in that little space underneath the truck, and go to my knees, wait for them to say cut, wait till I hear the fire extinguisher coming in, and then where the guy said you can breathe now. So, and I guess if it doesn't work, you can act on the Dunyan Law Firm commercial. Yes, that's right. Before you guys go, we wanted to let people know that you guys are going to be back in the upcoming weeks to do some movie reviews for the Bruce Collins Show. We got to jazz up this show here, so we want to have you guys back every once in a while to talk about some kind of new movie that you've seen. Sounds awesome, man. We're excited. And the good thing about that is we don't always see eye to eye on movies. So excellent. Oh, isn't that the truth? You might hear some fisticuffs in the background, but we will always do our best to give you an honest opinion from Hollywood's newest middle-aged power couple. Well, as long as we hear the fisticuffs, since it's radio, we can't actually see them, but you could just make some sound
you'll
effects.
Hear it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Bruce Collins Show, where you can find us every Friday night at midnight here at WWPR 1490 AM. Remember, God loves you. We do too. Don't give up.